Bandwidth for this podcast is brought to you by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
Oh, sorry. I was just I was wrapping myself around an object.
Okay, because that's what I'm going to do.
You're going to do, yeah. He's
Yes,
going to show you
yeah.
how to take text
Okay.
and wrap it around an object. But I'm actually constrained by this umbilical cord.
Welcome back to MacBreak Studio, by the way.
I'm just being silly.
So here's what we're going to do, right? We're doing some motion again. And what we want to do is wrap text around an object, exactly. Kind of a 3D kind of thing here. Right. So let's dive right in and see why this might be useful. You might have a logo, for example, and you want your text to spin around the logo.
Yeah, a lot of people have emailed us about that. They want to be able to take text and put it and wrap it around a vehicle, an object, a
globe, logo, anything.
Whatever, yeah.
So here's the basic idea. So just for demonstration purposes, I've created a circle just using the shape tool. And you can see here I've filled it with a gradient, and I've got a little gradient here. In fact, the easiest way to adjust the gradient really is to right-click and choose the Edit Gradient tool here to kind of get the kind of gradient you want. So I did that, and then I've got some text. And if you're curious, this is called Octane Team, this particular font that I'm using right here. So here's the basic thing you need to do. The first thing is in the text inspector, you want to go to the layout pane there. And in the layout controls, there's a layout method. And type is the default, and it's what you use almost all the time. But there are a bunch of other options in here. In particular, we're going to go to the one called path. And we've used this for another tutorial, but we're going to use this in a different way this time. So path, it's hard to tell what happened here, but if you double click on the text, you'll actually see control points that you can move around to change it, to change how the text is shaped. It takes a second to update there. You just have to move the mouse. I don't really want that type of path. That's a free-form path. What I want to do here, I'm going to hit Shift-S. Oops. I'm going to hit Escape just to get out of that. I'm going to go down in the inspector to these path options. So once you choose path as the layout method, you've got a bunch of path options that become available. And by default, the path shape is an open spline, but we have a bunch of options for what that shape looks like. And I'm going to choose a circle because I want the text to wrap around something, okay? So choose circle, and it does something like that by default, which in and of itself is kind of interesting. I could,
that fits
send it on here.
Your gradient perfectly.
Yeah,
I did
not plan that.
Wow.
But let's say we wanted on the outside, if I could just increase the radius of that circle, and then you do have to reposition things a little bit. But I could go a little bigger, and I could wrap the text around kind of a 2D wrap around, like something like that, okay? And then to move it, there's a path offset, so you can change where that text starts and stops. You might want to do something more like that, right? So that's a path offset to kind of set it up. So that's cool in and of itself, and you can animate this with keyframes or behaviors to actually move along this path, continue to rotate. But we want more.
I bet a text sequence behavior would animate that around there.
Well, or just it would animate the individual letters for sure. But this path offset thing itself, you could animate this slider, see, to make it spin around, right? So I could just use that. But I want more of a 3D look. This is just totally flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Q, which gives me my Adjust 3D Transform tool. It's this tool right down here, okay? So instead of the Select tool, it's this 3D Transform tool. And then I'm going to hold the Shift key down, and there's these three little circles here that are rotation handles. Hold the Shift key down and drag up on this one, which allows me to lay that completely flat. Yeah, so now I've laid the text down. It's like a card, and I just laid it flat down.
Now you need the letters to stand up.
Yeah, now I need the letters to stand up. So that's kind of the key part. So what we're going to do for that...
So there must be a checkbox for that somewhere.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a checkbox for that, but if I go to the Properties Inspector, there's Rotation. And if I look at when I think about the text standing up, if I take the X rotation, oh, that's the whole thing, sorry. Let's go back to the text itself. And now I have to remember for a second.
I messed you up, didn't I?
Yeah, sorry. So here we go. There's several places to adjust rotation. If you adjust it in the Properties Inspector, it'll adjust the rotation of the whole text object.
Right.
But if you go to the Format, there's advanced formatting options, and there's rotation in here. So if we open up rotation by clicking the disclosure triangle, we've got X, Y, and Z. So if I move X, check it out. See how I'm just making that X text stand up?
Yeah.
So if I set it to 90 degrees, now I've got this text standing up around that circle. And The problem is you might notice we're actually seeing all the text. Let's go back to the layout and play with that offset again. And the text is all completely in front of that circle. It's not in front and behind.
Yeah, it's not wrapping like you
right.
said.
In fact, let's increase the radius to make that really obvious.
Right.
So check it out. It's not wrapping around that thing at all.
No.
Let's actually move it over a little bit to the left too.
Fail.
Yeah. Well, just not there yet.
Okay.
There is no failure. It's just not being quite there yet. So the reason for that is that layers can't interact with each other unless they're in 3D groups.
Ah.
Yeah,
So
that's the thing
turn
here.
on the 3D camera or something.
Well,
right?
you could add a camera, but you don't need to have a camera. So I wanted to show that you don't need to have a camera. So this group is a 2D group. So from the object menu, I could choose to make this a 3D group. Control D, or even easier is this little icon right here. If I click on it, we'll make it a 3D group. Now, I don't know if you can see the difference when I'm doing that, how the text is actually now disappearing behind there. In fact, to make it a little more obvious, let's rotate the whole text this way. And then let's select the text and go back to that path offset. And now, we can see it's definitely going behind
Yes.
and coming in front,
Yeah.
okay? So now it's definitely working the way we want it to. Now, so if we want to animate that, however, check it out. Text is reading backwards, right?
Is.
It's totally backwards. So all we need to do for that is back in these path options, there's an inside path checkbox that determines whether the text rotates on the outside of the path or the inside. So if we choose inside, and then we use this path offset, we can see it reads correctly, right? So check it out. I'm just going to take this path offset. I'm going to right click on it, right on the word itself, add parameter behavior, and I'm going to choose a rate parameter behavior. And immediately in the behaviors inspector, we see this rate pop forward. I'm just going to give it a rate of, -10. We'll see what kind of speed that is. There we go. So now it's animating forever around that object.
Without a single keyframe.
Without a single keyframe, yeah. And maybe I want to move the whole thing down just a little bit. So super easy to get the text to wrap around. And again, while it's playing even, we can go in and say, oh, I want the radius a little bit bigger, or I want to move it down or over, or you want to change the font. Anything you want to do, you can just do while it's playing to kind of get exactly what you want.
And the key is the 2D group to a 3D group.
Yeah, yeah. Now you could add a camera. For instance, if I just click the camera icon here, it'll add a camera in, which will allow us to kind of rotate around this whole thing.
Oh, no, yeah. And they can see
Yeah.
your...
Now you can see that guy thing's flat, okay?
You're running a
that
long con with your graphic here.
Yeah. Now there's some things you can do about that. There's a point at behavior you can
Sure.
put on that circle so it always points at the camera. It looks like a sphere.
Right.
But if you do want to have that 2D look, you can move the camera around and have another look at it.
Right.
But a quick and easy way to take text and wrap it around any kind of object that you want.
I think that's fantastic. Very, very useful too. Now you have a tutorial on working with text, and people can learn how to do
I do.
more of this
Yeah,
kind of
we
stuff?
do a little more of this with a globe, and I do 3D with text shadows, because you can add lights and shadows and a lot of stuff. We don't have quite enough time to go in here, but I have a tutorial that goes it's mastering text in motion. So it goes in depth into all kind of creating, styling, animating.
Fantastic,
text in motion.
fantastic. So you can find that at rippletraining.com, along with a bunch of other stuff, plugins, and you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And thanks, Mark, for showing us this awesome technique in motion. And we thank you for watching MacBreak Studio. See you next time.